Please go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. So today we will have a recap of day one. We would now go into customer research, concept testing. After that, we would go into the next activity, which is creating personas. After that, we'll have a short break, and then we will go through customer journey mapping, understanding gender barriers, and that will take us to the end of day two, and then we'll have a preview of day three. Now, next slide. So before we go into this mini quiz, I don't know, can anybody in the house remind us of some of the things we did last session? What were some of the things we learned last session? Anybody? Yeah, Itumeleng, please go ahead.
In the last session, we learned about human-centered design, which is basically making sure that your product is as customer-centric as possible. By this, I mean that you create with the customer instead of creating for the customer. So what you do is, in the process, is you empathize with the customer, you try to understand them, walk a mile in their shoes, understand their deepest needs and their deepest desires. And then you brainstorm ideas on how you could solve the problems that they have. And then in doing so, in brainstorming ideas, you end up creating a sort of prototype. So a prototype is from what I gathered, it's a combination of ideas that you think can best solve the consumer's needs. So you take this prototype to the consumers for feedback, and then you find an idea which best serve them, and then you create a product out of it. Yes, wow. Thank you.
This is fantastic. This is fantastic. Please, I want us all to virtually clap for Itumeleng. She did excellent, excellent, excellent. Can we clap for her? Great, great, great. I can see all the virtual hands up. Thank you so much, Itumeleng. So can we hear from you, Masupam? Is there anything else you picked?
I think importantly is that initially the development stage requires that we look at things holistically before drawing down to our final, I'll say, prepositions. I think that was the biggest takeaway from me, and which importantly allows us to see different opportunities and perspectives. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Masupam. Great. I mean, I think we have an incredibly strong start. In fact, what I've heard now is strong music to my ears. So just asking quickly, who can tell us what's the difference between an idea and a concept? Who can tell us? Any takers? You can go ahead and speak. You don't need to raise your hand. What's an idea and then what's a concept?
An idea is a rough mental impression, like maybe a suggestion or a thought or an opinion or your belief, while a concept stands now for an understanding drawn from that particular fact or logic. Meaning what comes before is an idea, is a spark. And now concept is now putting the idea now into paper and conceptualizing it.
Excellent, excellent, Nobandili. Excellent. This is, I mean, you're speaking like a human-centered design professor already. Now, what do you need to help you in defining a target customer for your product? Why is it necessary? Why do you need to define a target customer for your product? As against shooting blind in the air and just designing a product. Why is it important to have a specific target customer in mind when you're actually fleshing out and designing a product?
Just to
yes, go
a
ahead,
certain
please.
extent, what you are trying to achieve is to ensure that we design a product that speaks to the particular needs and expectations for that particular customer we identify, to ensure that what we put on the table really has value in terms of taking care of the special needs from that particular customer. So we need to be focused in terms of what we produce. Thank you so much.
Absolutely true. And as simple as and as mundane as it sounds, you will all be amazed at how many organizations across multiple industries create products every day. And when I throw the very simple question, what's the profile of the typical target customer you're designing this product for? Everybody goes blank. Everybody simply goes blank. You see, in Letshego, you have finite resources. Well, also I assume. Or do you have infinite resources in Letshego? Do you have finite resources?
What is the question? I
said, do you have finite or infinite resources? Okay, what I mean by that is, do you have a budget for creating and rolling out products, or do you have an infinite budget? Okay, excellent. I can see some people already on the chat saying finite resources. So because you have finite resources, it's very important the profile of your target customer is properly defined so that you're able to target that customer with laser sharp precision and clarity. Identifying who this target customer is, where this target customer lives, what the motivations and aspirations of the target customer are, what the target customer wants to see, what the target customer wants to buy, what the target customer wants to relieve. So all of these help you in actually ensuring that you're able to achieve your targets in terms of sales, revenues, loyalty, adoption, etc. for your product. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I think we've warmed up enough. Now, how well do you understand your clients' financial lives? So firstly, in trying to understand your clients' financial lives, there are a couple of things you need to pay attention to. So now you first of all need to look at the client's social and economic environment. So how are they battling with inflation, with exchange rates, with unemployment, with poverty, with misery, with access to economic opportunities? So all of these are very important considerations in designing products for them. You need to understand what the fears, what the concerns, and what the challenges of this target customer are. You need to understand what their individual circumstances are, as well as what their family circumstances are. So are you designing a product for a household head, or are you designing a product for a household member? What are the savings aspirations of a household head versus a household member? Are you designing a product for a farmer who is actually farming in a season where rains are scarce? Or are you designing products for a trader selling products and probably moving into a Christmas season where sales are going to ramp up for that particular product? Now, the next question is, what are the customer's personality and attitudinal traits? So how does this customer think? How does this customer feel? And how does this customer act? You see, most times I get, most times when I interact with product designers and financial service providers in most African countries, I get to hear things like, this is the way the average Ghanaian thinks. You know, there's a mentality problem with the Kenyan citizens. You know, there's a way Nigerians reason. I don't know. Do any of you in Letshego get to hear that?
Definitely, I can definitely associate and agree with that.
So you have people attribute behaviors to a mentality of a particular people. And for that reason, they simply say, well, this idea of this product is not going to work because of the way the people in this environment reason, or because of the way they feel, or because of the way they think, or because of the way they act. Now, after going through my classes in HCD, you would never make any such allusion. People are products of their circumstances, and it is our responsibility as product designers to understand what those circumstances are, what the risks given the circumstances are, and how the circumstances influence their personality. And then it is our responsibility to design a product that fits into their personality, into how they think, into how they feel, and into how they act. It is not their responsibility to change their personality to align and suit our own preferred risk profile in Letshego. It is our responsibility in Letshego to understand how they think, understand how they feel, understand how they act, and design a product that fits into that context. Do you understand me? I hope you understand me. Hello, I'm not getting any feedback from Letshego.
Loud and clear.
I hope you are all here.
We do. Yes,
Or
we
have you all abandoned me? It's dangerous if you abandon me because I'm going to cry. Are you all still with me?
Yes, we are still with you.
Great, 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 great. Now, it's also our responsibility to understand the context in which the customer takes decisions. So a Kenyan is different from a Rwandan. A Rwandan is different from a Tanzanian. A Tanzanian is different from a Kenyan. A Kenyan is different from a Nigerian. A Nigerian is different from a South African. It is our responsibility as financial service providers to apply these contextual nuances in how we design our products. So we need to understand who are the key decision influencers for an average Kenyan who is over 30. If we know that decision influencer and we understand how this person takes decisions, we build in a decision hook where that decision influencer will influence our target customer to buy the product. So in the design of our product and in the design of the awareness issues around our product, we will incorporate elements that would apply and elements that will sway the decision influencer to make the decision maker make the decision we seek. Do you understand? So in a design situation, every single cue or every single observation is a cue that can help you refine and strengthen the value proposition and the utility of your product. So you need to understand, how do they think? How do they feel? How do they act? How do they make decisions? Are they very religious? Are they very laissez-faire? Are they very emotional? Are they very sensitive? Are there current events that will sway their decisions in certain directions? What are their fears? What are their needs? What are their aspirations? What are their most critical concerns? How do their, what are the things that threaten their sense of self-worth and self-esteem? You need to understand all this in designing your product. And then you also need to understand what they know. So what's their knowledge level? What's their skill level? What do they not know? And what do they know how to do? And what do they not know how to do? And then behavior, what do they actually do? So what do they do in the morning? What do they do in the afternoon? What do they do in the evening? Do they spend a lot of time drinking beer? Or are they, do they spend more time in funerals? Or are they very, very religious who spend a lot of time in the church? So you need to understand all of these contextual nuances as they apply to your target customer. Any questions before I move? Or do you get me loud and clear? Great. Now, yeah, so now you also need to understand how satisfied they are with their financial situation. So what are their financial aspirations? Where do they want to be in the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years? Do they want to buy a house in 10 years, or do they want to buy land they can actually cultivate and get into agriculture? Do they prefer to have pickup trucks for evacuating farm produce? Is this a barter economy? Now, is this an economy where people enjoy certain types of lifestyle? So you need to understand how satisfied they are with their financial situation, what their financial aspirations are, what the opportunities they see are. So while for you, it may be perfectly right for someone probably who is 29 or 30 to begin to think about getting married, in the context of your consumer, getting married may be the least of their concerns at that time. Probably they want to get married at 50 or at 45. Now, while that may seem odd to you, it's important you understand who you're designing for. So if you're designing for someone who probably wants to get married at 50 and you're telling the person about kids and family and all that at age 25, you're most likely going to be missing the mark and you're going to put the person off. So human-centered design needs a level of empathy that is phenomenal. Do you understand me? I hope you do. Next slide. So in human-centered design, you're going to use a lot of qualitative methods to gain insights from your customer. So you're going to use insights like interviews, interactions, ethnography, and then in most instances, in actually getting the data, you want to go into the client's natural context. So you want to interview and you want to understand the life of a trader. You go sit down with the trader in their trading facility. You observe what they are doing. You listen to how they interact with their clients. You listen to how they interact with their suppliers. You listen to how they interact with their employees. That way you are able to design a product that addresses all of their needs. You're going to better understand their choice architecture because you are experiencing what they're experiencing in their real life context. You go to their homes, you go to their places of trade, you go with them to their farms. And then you come down to their level, you interact with them at a very personal level, reducing any barriers that will make them see you as a master and themselves as a lord, so that they are able to express themselves and express their deepest fears and concerns. So when you better understand the client's choice architecture, their needs, their desires, their aspirations, and their worldviews, you're also able to understand their social context. So what are their ingrained values as a consequence of the context in which they were born or raised? What were those values that were hardwired in their DNAs as human beings? And then what are the relational dynamics between them in their social contexts? In the places they work, places they worship, places they school, their social outlets. So you want to map their entire lives around all of these issues. Next slide. So how do we collect qualitative data? Next slide. Now, there are multiple ways of collecting qualitative data, but I'm going to move you quickly now into concept testing. And then, in concept testing, we will go through a process that would help us build out a concept for a particular customer. Now, what does a concept testing entail? A concept testing entails firstly exploring the financial behavior, the needs, the motivations, and the aspirations of the target segments to understand how a solution concept may be important to a target segment. So in concept testing, you're trying to understand the behaviors, the needs, and the motivations, because you want to use this to map out and ensure that you're building out a value proposition. Remember what a value proposition is: a need to be met, a pain reliever to take away the pains the customer is having, and a gain creator to add the gains the customer wants to get. Now, you want to see how you will apply your value proposition to address the needs of the customer and then solve their problems in their day life. Now, what are the steps in concept testing? You want to start out by firstly drawing up what we call a learning agenda. You want to develop a research plan. You want to assign roles. You want to engage target segments in individual as well as group discussions. And then last but not the least, you want to synthesize your findings into what we call persona worksheets. Next slide. Let's now move into what the issues are. Now, what's a learning agenda? A learning agenda helps you define an agenda that you would actually use to learn about the customer's life, family context, finances, financial behaviors, motivations, and attitudes. And what the learning agenda essentially does is that it helps you ground truth and build a hypothesis around who this target customer is. So, what are the basic demographics of this customer? What's your age, your location, your sex, your educational level, your occupation, household size, your digital literacy and level, as well as the digital assets you utilize? Now, what's the context of your family? Are you married or single? What's your economic role in the household? Are you the head of the household, or are you the tail of the household, or the financial provider of the household? How do you own and control money? What's your financial role? How much access do you have to the household finances and resources? What access do you have to mobile devices? And then let's look at other contextual issues like your finances. What's your income level, reliability, periodicity? So do you earn income on a daily, monthly, weekly, or quarterly basis? I mean, if you're a farmer, what are your planting seasons and your harvest seasons? What are your expenses? What financial reserves do you have that help you recover or recuperate from shocks? What's your social network? How reliable is this social network in providing you support when you run into financial difficulty? What are social safety net accesses you have, as well as public safety net accesses you have? So when you run into problems, do friends and family rally around and put together savings or put together contributions to help you get out of trouble? So all of these are very significant in defining the context of your finances. Now, what are your financial behaviors? Are you very frugal, or do you spend a lot of money? How do you build your reserves? How do you cultivate receivables? How do you plan and prioritize? How do you utilize financial services, as well as social financial services and relationships? Now, what are your financial needs and goals? What are your motivations? And then to what extent do you perceive financial services to be complex? What's your orientation for taking credit? Do you see credit as a valuable tool that can actually help you achieve your business goals, or do you see it as a crime? To what extent do you trust people? To what extent do you trust social financial networks? To what extent do you trust banks? Next slide. So now the next is, before you go to the field, you want to assign roles. So our recommendation is that you have a minimum of at least 5 people when you want to go to the field to take your data. You need to have a facilitator who will typically be the lead interviewer, who is going to lead the asking of questions. You need to have the backstop, who is the support interviewer, who is going to be supporting the lead interviewer in asking questions. You're going to have the note taker, who will be taking notes and journalizing all of the developments and entries. You're going to have the photographer, who will be taking photographs of the interview sessions as they proceed. You're going to have the translator, who will be translating all of the language as things proceed. You're going to have multiple videos on our eLearn platform that can actually show you how all of these can happen. Next slide. Now, the household financial map is a customer interview worksheet that helps you actually capture how customers actually manage their finances in a response to multiple scenarios. Now, building out this household financial map is a participatory exercise that helps you draw out experiences, relationships, and attitudes that actually drive financial decisions. So it helps you map out aspirations. So where does this customer want to be in X, Y number of years in terms of finance, business, etc.? What's their current income level? What's the normality, the periodicity? What are the obstacles they face? What are the risks and the constraints that militate against their meeting their financial goals? What financial tools do they have at their disposal? What expenses do they typically incur, in a normal week? And then what assets do they have at their disposal that they can actually use in, creating products? Next slide. Now, the ecosystem map is a visual representation of the actors and relationships that play an essential role in the economic as well as the financial life of your customer. And what the ecosystem map does, as well as the noun cards. So all of the cards by the side are usually cut and printed. What you use the noun cards to do during interviews is to map and define how close are each of these ecosystem members to the core of the target customer for whom you are designing. How close or how far are they? So, if you look at the noun cards, you have things like family, school, informal money lender, credit provider, friends and neighbors, insurer, MNO, bank, cooperative, ROSCA. So what you typically do is, as you engage and interact with the customer during the interview, you place each of these noun cards as close to the customer as possible, depending on the customer's preference or feedback you get from the customer as to how close each of these players are. Now, what this ecosystem helps you do is it helps you understand, looking at this entire customer's financial structure, who are the most critical stakeholders and why? How close are they to the customer and how far away from the customer? Next slide. Now, synthesis is an interesting collaborative process that is carried out by all of the interview team when they actually come together at the end of the day. Now, what do they do in synthesis? They collaboratively come together to download and understand the data that has been gathered during customer research. Now, what happens during synthesis? A coherent summary or interpretation of all of the research findings happen. And this helps the team reach a consensus on what the most compelling insights are. So at the end of this interview, what were the most profound problems identified? What are these customers' most critical desires and aspirations? And synthesis is something you do continuously and should always involve all members of the team, because you want to ensure that all perspectives come into the synthesis. Next slide. Next slide. Now, personas are an incredibly important activity. Now, at the end of the synthesis process, personas help you define the profile of the typical customer you want to serve. So a persona is a sheet that helps you define the customer's basic demographic, financial and personal needs, aspirations, and then behavioral characteristics. Now, what personas typically do is they help you represent an actual in-depth profile of a specific group within your target audience. So your target audience may be a target audience of 2 million people or 1 million people. Now, what the persona does is the persona helps you go in depth to understand the in-depth profile of specific groups within these broad targets. So let's look at an example of it, or rather, let's first of all know why we use personas. Next slide. Personas provide that lens through which you understand the experiences and perspectives that may govern a person's experience, using financial tools and meeting their needs and goals. Now, typically, what do personas do? Personas here help anticipate biases and experiences for each persona along your client's journey. So once you build out the persona helps you better understand who the customer is, what are their biases, what are their experiences, what are their needs, and what are the overarching assumptions they have about themselves, about their aspirations, and about their financial needs and their financial lives. Now, what personas do is they also help you create that room for a much more rigorous testing. Next slide. Now, this is an example of a persona that we came up with when we're building out the human account for Nigeria, working collaboratively with another New York-based design firm. Now, this is a Nigerian financial service consumer. Her name is Victoria Oko. She's 21 years old. She's female. She lives in the urban area. Her educational level is high school, and she is employed full-time. Now, what's the key insight here? She sees business as the foundation of her future financial security. And she knows a business requires money in addition to an idea, as well as careful planning. Now, what are her aspirations? Though college is her primary priority for savings, she's taking concrete steps towards starting a pedicure business. She's saving to go to the university and wants to go to school. Of course, she doesn't know how much that will cost, but she knows she wants to go, and she's going to pay a visit to find out costs and charges. However, she wants to build out her skills and become a specialist in pedicure. And she wants to be looked at and told she's a specialist. She currently works in a spa job where she earns $111 a month. And then she lives with her aunt and uncle. She has free rent, and she gets support for food and cash in times of need, especially when she's changing jobs. She has friends, and she does small purchases every once in a while. She has medium to high comfort with the use of technology. Now, what are her current challenges? She frequently changes jobs, of course, given the very fragile nature of her skill, disposition, as well as her circumstances. And then typically she relies on a monthly salary. Sometimes employers get to pay late. And what that does is it makes it difficult to manage your financial circumstances. She spends money on food, on miscellaneous personal care like clothing, phone bills, and she remits $25 to her mother every month. And then she attends exams every month. her level of comfort with financial tools is low to medium. So this in essence is what you actually build out in the persona. And this typically happens after the synthesis. So I think it's time for us to break out into our activity group. Next slide. Okay, Masupam, noted. Now we're going to break out into groups. And this is going to be a role play interview. So Ibuku, can you walk us through? So how are we going to break out? Who is going to be the interviewer and who is going to be the interviewee? And what's the interview guide? Go ahead, Ibuku.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we're going to have a 2-in-1 breakout session. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be role-playing interviews based on what we just learned. So once we break out into our rooms, we're going to elect, depending on how many people are around, we divide ourselves into the facilitator, the note taker and things like that. We don't need a photographer and all those other things. But then someone is going to play the role of the person being interviewed. So it's just what we are doing, or the aim of this activity is just to strengthen our interview skills and also to, get ourselves familiar with the entire process of, getting to the head of our target customer. Then once we are done with that, some of the insights that we'll gain from that conversation, we will now synthesize it into trying to draw up a persona of who we just spoke with, using the worksheets, their comfort with technology, what they use money for, their aspirations, and so on and so forth. So us having these two activities will sort of prepare us. Then what that means is when we go back to our, our day jobs, we'll be able to sort of, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so basically it gives us the tools, the knowledge, and the experience to be able to do this on our own once we're done with this entire workshop. So we can go to the field and interview some of our own customers too, and synthesize those insights and feedback we get from them into drawing up personas of who we are trying to target, and that will help us build better products. So that's just the whole aim of this. So once we enter into our breakout rooms now, our group leads, people from LBS will share the links to the worksheets and the interview guide that will help us to be able to have these activities. So we have just 40 minutes, because we are doing two things. We are doing the role-play interviews, and then we are going to build personas out of that. And once we are done with that, we'll come back here for share out. All right, then. I hope there are no questions. If there are any questions, the LBS representatives will answer them or address them in the breakout room. All right. So without further ado, please kindly accept the invitation to your breakout room, and let's get started. Master Pam, are you in Letshego? Master Pam?
Based on what.
Hello, Dr. Nke.
What comes to mind? What feels real?
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, hello, Timothy, I'm here.
I wanted to ask, were you able to open the files that Shazad sent?
Huh?
The files that Shazad shared, were you able to open them?
Okay, so let's get started. So I don't know.
Let's have the first group. Can we have the first group?
And Adepula, can you please? I don't see the notes.
Okay, if group one is not ready, can we have group two? Great, great, great. So group two, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So in group two, we had a very fun time around around the customer and part of us being the interviewer. So we interviewed our customer being Mentatisi. Mentatisi is a 30-year-old female residing at Hamama, which is a rural place or partially rural or urban in Lesotho. She only ended her education at standard 7 and she is self-employed. So what we really got from Mentatisi was that she aspires to grow her business. Currently, her business is small, mainly confectionery, selling vegetables, and basically provision. There's a need to develop a product that will improve her situation, because what she kept on talking about was, when can you assist me with funding or capital or a loan that can assist expansion of my business? So this is where what it explains in the aspiration tab, where it talks around she desires to have access to business capital in order to expand her business. This will help her generate more income for both business expansion and for her to yield higher profit and maybe improve on her life. Her biggest challenge is that she has a perception, or also when she goes to banks, there is no facilities for her. Banks offer loans only for government employees. So as a result, she lacks capital. So her business is really not performing well due to minimal stock. And as a result, she has nothing, close to nothing to offer to her customers. So she runs out of stock very fast. So her income level is, the family is dependent on her business, because the husband does not work. So the business is sole the main income stream for the family. In terms of expenses, they live on a day-to-day basis. So it's really close, it's really difficult for them to establish the expenses that their business has incurred. So because it's now a business that feeds into the family, they live on mouth to business kind of way. As a result, it's also a challenge for her to produce books that can maybe help her in terms of getting funding. Level of technology is very low. As we said, she ended school at standard 7, but she did mention that she can be assisted by her cousin. And then in terms of comfort with financial tools, it's also a struggle, and we established that there's a need for us to offer her financial literacy so that we can support her development in that front. Thank you very much. I will allow questions at this stage.
This is great. This is really, really great and exciting. I love this. So is this the only thing you're presenting?
Let me do this. Yes, we worked on, so what we did, there were guidance on the interview. And then we did the household financial mapping, whereby we were able to identify the aspirations, income, categorize them accordingly. So we just ran out of time before we would put into expenses. There was not much said around her assets though. Yeah, so there was not much asked around that, and she also didn't offer
I will blame
any
Ibuku. I will blame Ibuku for your running out of time. It's Ibuku's fault.
So in terms of the ecosystem mapping, we didn't do that one, unfortunately. But I obviously getting from how she conversated, family would be closer to her in terms of the ecosystem, and then you would get that the insurer and others would be far further from her. So this one we didn't do as a team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Novandile. Appreciate it. So can we hear from the other group? I believe the other group should be ready by now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to, from the other group, we have been interviewing Sipati. Sipati is a 25-year female. Her level of education, she has a bachelor's degree. She is formally employed. So the key insight we obtained from her is that she has no financial discipline to pay a loan. Maybe that is because she already mentioned that she spends more than what she has as her monthly income. Yeah, so her aspirations are to become a UN ambassador, and also she wants to embark on multiple streams of income via public speaking and philanthropy. So we find that the challenges, like I already mentioned with insights, is that her challenges is that she spends more. The challenges we obtain from her is that she spends more than she earns. Her total income per month is 3,500, but her expenses are 5,000 or more in a month. So since her income is 3,500, she usually gets some more money, or her fiance augments her monthly income with some stipend that cannot be said. She obtained a specific amount every month, so that is a challenge. So she's unable to do a financial planning for herself, and we can boldly say she has a one multiple stream of income. So in terms of a level of comfort with technology is very high, and her level of comfort with financial tools is at the medium stage. She says she sometimes keeps money within her mattresses, so she does not use mobile money so much. So we found it that yes, maybe we can be able to develop or try to convince her to we can be able to develop the tools that makes it easier for her to do banking digitally. Yeah, I think that is as far as we were able to go. Thank you.
So I'm gonna give a round of applause to both teams. I think you guys both did great. Very exciting work, exciting insights, and The truth is that it can only get better when you get to the field, you get to better experience the customer. And, you know, for me, the HCD process is always very, very revealing and very, very humbling. Great. So I actually was supposed to have a break now, but Ibuku, I think we have to move into customer journey mapping, right? Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So who is leading that from IPA?
No, you're the one taking them through that, sir.
Oh, I am. Oh,
Yes, sir.
apologies. Okay, okay, great. Okay, so go to slideshow. Okay, so essentially, a customer journey map is an illustration of the steps a customer takes in their interaction with the product. So what essentially you're trying to do in a customer journey map is you're trying to define, how does this customer interact with your product? How does this customer get awareness? How does this customer use the product? You know, what are the fears of the customer? How does this customer dispose the product? How does this customer integrate the product with other products they utilize? So you're looking at the customer's entire journey and you're trying to ask and answer the question, how does this customer move through this journey from beginning to end? So that's essentially what you're trying to do. You're trying to identify the customer goals. You're trying to identify the triggers that would help your institution know what specific nudges or actions to take to actually enhance customer utility and enhance customer use of your products along each of the stages along the customer journey. Next slide. So how do your customers currently solve the problem you've identified? So I'll open it up now to you. So I think you guys should share one or two examples of some problems your customers have and how your customers go about solving these problems in their everyday lives. You know, you're looking specifically at how you can either use savings, credits, or collections to enhance the customer's approach to solving this problem. So does any ready example come to mind? Okay. So if no example comes to mind, let's quickly move to showing the customer journey map. Next slide. Now, another usefulness of the customer journey map is that it helps you create a shared understanding of your service from the point of view of the customer. You know, it's very easy to think about and eyeball your service from the point of view of you as the provider. This is how I see the service. This is how my customer experiences the service. And these are my customers' needs, experiences, and aspirations, as well as concerns as they utilize the product. What the customer journey map does is it now puts you in the shoes of the customer. And it helps you critique what it is you're offering. How is your offering solving the customer's problem? So it's no longer a case of these are the bank's policies, these are the requirements of the regulators, these are our concerns from a risk management standpoint. The questions you're now trying to ask and answer during the customer journey map is, how does the customer experience my brand? From awareness to product knowledge, to product adoption, to product use, to product disposal. What are the customer options and what are the needs? What are the concerns at the various contact points along the entire customer journey? What are the inconsistencies in service delivery? What are the opportunities we can address? And what improvements or new ideas can we apply in enhancing the customer experience or the customer journey? Next slide. Now, what are the key elements of the customer journey map? You have the awareness stage, you have the onboarding, you have the first time use, you have sustained use, and you have advocacy. Now, at the awareness stage, the 5 elements you're trying to map along this customer journey is, okay, what are those key moments that trigger and enhance the awareness of this product? So what's the customer doing at the awareness stage? What are the touch points? So how does my institution create awareness for this product? Who are the people? What are the systems? What are the objects? How does the institution ensure that the awareness of this product is complete and that the awareness exists at the various customer touch points that the bank has established? So if, for instance, we're trying to appeal to a religious group, have we created a touch point at their point of worship? What are the customer thoughts? So what's your customer thinking at the stage of awareness, at the stage of onboarding, at the stage of first time use, sustained use, or advocacy? What are the customer's feelings? So what's your customer feeling at each stage of the journey? So what comes to your customer's mind? What are your customer's concerns and what are their aspirations? And then what are the opportunities? So how can you create positive or negative experiences at each of these stages? So remember, you're not just looking at the awareness stage. What you're also trying to address are the barriers, the inhibitors, and the enablers you can put in place to enhance the onboarding experience. You also want to enhance the first time use experience, because if the first time use experience isn't good enough, sustained use becomes a challenge. Now, if first time use is a good experience and sustained use does not happen effectively, it becomes difficult to actually convert the customer to an advocate who would actually go out, advocate, and get people to buy or utilize the product or service. Next slide. So this is a typical example of a customer journey map. So this is a Nigerian product. And at the awareness stage, the touch point here defined at the awareness stage is a billboard. Now, what does the customer do? The customer is expected to interact and interface with this billboard during their commute to work or commute back from work. So the expectation is that the billboard has to be positioned such that when the customer is either walking, riding in a motorcycle, riding in a public transportation bus, riding in a train, or riding in a private car, the signboard or the billboard is supposed to be visible enough for the customer to see it. Now, what are the feelings? The feelings are ambivalent, neither here nor there. So the customer is still observing, interacting with the brand and looking at the product on the billboard. Now, there are a couple of quotes, so I'll use some of the Nigerian language. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you guys watch Nigerian movies in Lesotho? Do you?
Yes, we do. Nollywood.
Great, you watch Nollywood, so I'm sure you'll be used to some of the Nigerian slangs like "Oya now." Are you conversant with that?
Not really.
Oh my gosh! Oh, Itumeleng, you just let me down. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I was feeling like Nollywood was very international, but it's okay. It's okay. So the quotes include this Lagos. You even get money from phone. So what that simply says, you can actually get money from a mobile phone. One day I go become big boy too. Okay, Abia says Nigeria Afro music is a lot more popular in Lesotho. Wow, I've actually not been to Lesotho. I guess I'll get an invitation after this class to come visit Lesotho and experience Lesotho. I hear it's a very beautiful place. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is it a beautiful place? Nobody is responding. Nobody is responding. It appears Lesotho is not as beautiful as I heard it is.
The topography is incredible. You actually want to come here, I tell you.
Wow. Terrific. Terrific. I'll soon be there. Now, the opportunities are to communicate product information, also communicate product benefits. Now, in terms of onboarding, he passes a store to his neighborhood and sees the same sticker on a kiosk. Now, the feelings is further surprise at the reach. Wow, so this billboard, this product I saw in the billboard is now actually within arm's reach. And the quote is now wow, meaning wow. This billboard where they see every day don't reach here too. What that means is this same billboard I see as I commute to work and back every day is now here within arm's reach. And he now communicates with the kiosk operator and says, Ali, how far? Meaning, Ali, what next? What's this product about? Now, the opportunity at this stage is user registration and user sign up. So Ali takes Issa's phone, helps Issa get on with use of the product, and then drives, shows Issa the various utilities of this product or service. Now, first use. With Ali's assistance, Issa now decides to try out the solution. And the first reaction is excitement. Wow, this works. And the quote is, make me too cuckoo tester, meaning let me also test it. I mean, since the kiosk operator has tested it, let me also test it. After all, I need small pockets. I need small money for pocket, meaning after all, I need to have some money in my pocket to catch up with some of my petty expenses. And the opportunity here in first time use is actually teaching Issa to learn to use the product. So since it's a payment product, how can I use it to pay bills, pay back loans, etc.? Now, that's first time use. Now let's look at sustained use. Sustained use is that Issa receives his salary and wants to pay back some of his loan. Now, the feeling here is a little bit of sadness and remorse because, of course, the person's cash is depleting. I mean, I don't like spending money. I don't know if anybody does. But whenever my money depletes, I feel a little sad. And the quote is, this money helped me, Sha, meaning this money has been very helpful. And then the next comment is, now I must pay them small, meaning now the obligation now rests on me to ensure I repay back the loan in small installments. And the opportunities are notices on loan repayment benefits. Now, what's the advocacy here? Issa reflects as he has diligently completed his loan payments, and the reflection forces him to think and say, wow, this has really helped me. And the quote here is, this Gege saved me. What else can it do for my life? Meaning this product has actually saved me. What else can it help me achieve in my life? And the opportunities now include opportunities for additional credit and other services. Next slide. So now you're going to go into yet another breakout activity. And in this breakout activity, you are now all going to work in teams to build out a customer journey map. So what you're essentially going to do is you'll work together. You're going to have that same template we utilized, and you'll spend some time understanding what the customer journey is, and you'll build out a map on it. So Ibuku, any more directions before we go into our groups?
Dr. Nkem, I don't think there's any further directions, so we can just go into breakout rooms so that they can get started.
Great. Let's move into breakout rooms right away. because of time. Time is of the essence. We are 15 minutes behind.
I think I'm left by mistake.
Okay, are you in Letshego?
Yes, I'm in Letshego.
Let me see if I can. Okay, so did you get the prompt now?
Okay. It's just next to love.
Hi, Solani, did you get a prompt?
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you all doing?
We are doing good.
Great, great, great. So can we have the share out from the first group?
Dare Modise, can you present for us?
Oh, well, I don't want to go through like everything. For the sake of time, I think I will be able to answer like any questions. Okay, I'll just go through the touch points. Well, when maybe advertising a new product, we can let them know via a Facebook advert, a sponsored ad, or a shared ad on Facebook that people can see when they are still scrolling on Facebook. And then this Facebook ad will direct them to, to our website where we will have the application form. Well, first of all, if they are not members, they will register as members. And then after that, they will have their own personal account. So from their account, they can also apply for a loan. And then after the loan has been approved, they will receive a notification message in their account, under the messages in their accounts, and even in their emails as well. And also, we will send them funds to their specific bank account that they have with us, that they have registered with us. And then also from there, we will help them keep track on a monthly basis that this is the payment schedule. You are to pay such and such an amount on a monthly basis. And it will also show how much money they are still left that's still left to pay until they complete the payment of their loan. And when they have paid for their loan, we encourage them to take a bigger loan with us, so that, well, from the business side of things, we will be able to earn a bigger interest from them. Yes, I think I'm done. Well, can you please assist where I might have omitted some details?
Okay, Nadia, I think you have presented it very well. I can just add up by saying that then someone would want to know, like, on the awareness stage, when they realize the Facebook advert or the kiosk, the stall or kiosk, what what is the thoughts of the customer? Because of that advert or that awareness, the customer will be like, wow, do I also qualify for this loan? It says he or she sees a product that might be responsive to her particular need, then her feelings, he becomes curious or interested whether he or she qualifies for that loan. Remember this, the key moments. This is what happens to people when they are maybe lazy scrolling through their Facebook, or when they are in the kiosk or stall, or the stalls could be in the shopping centers, as particularly maybe during month end. So they come across these things when they are in the shopping, when they are shopping in the malls. So the opportunity for this at that moment is that we will then be able to communicate the uniqueness of our loan product with the clients. That can be done through that Facebook advert, or on the store or the kiosk. We'll be able to explain that. Yes. So in terms of onboarding, the thoughts of this customer at that time, because in fact the touch points, since he or she will go to the website to access this product, then her thoughts on in terms of onboarding will be that, oh, he will find that it is simple and convenient, and her feeling will be, he will be relieved to find that this is simple, and also be relieved to find that this is convenient, since that he or she doesn't have to travel from wherever he is to access these loans. And then at this point in time, this is where we have an opportunity to communicate with these clients to encourage them to save, because one of the prerequisites to qualify for a loan is for you to have been a member and you have been saving, and that savings will be used as part of the collateral. So in terms of sustainability or sustainable use, initially on the website, because every client, he or she has an account in our website, then there will be a communication that will be updating them with respect to the stage or the level of their loans. And then we will design SMS notifications to encourage them to come back again for another product when they do qualify. I think that can be all for now.
Great, great, great. Can we take the second group?
I'm just going to share my screen. Anyone to talk through it, or can I take it away?
No, you can talk through it.
So for us, we have our customer on his way to driving to work and then listening to the radio. Then I break, Letshego advert comes on, and it's speaking to the new exciting products that they have, which is instant loan, which can also be accessed through their digital mall as well as their traditional walk-in channels. So the customer thinks, how easy will it be for me to access this product? Will I even qualify? How long will it take? You know, they're thinking around the ease of access to the product. And that's that moment in time, they're feeling a bit excited, but as well, they're feeling worried that they may not qualify. So from an opportunities perspective, it does say to us, you know, we still have that opportunity to communicate our proposition even better and drive the simplicity of the product in a detailed manner that drives excitement and invitation to the customer for them to come through our channels. So with respect to onboarding, we have got our customer now who, while going through their Facebook Facebook timeline, they then see a Letshego ad that comes with a link to the digital mall. It's then they click on it, it redirects them to the Play Store where they then access the digital mall. And they are thinking, oh, this is very simple and straightforward. And there's that, you know, feeling of relief that comes with satisfaction. So for us, given that they may have actually accessed the digital mall for the purposes of availing of one product, instant loan or mobile loan, then as they go into the digital mall, they realize that there's more products on offer from Letshego. That the opportunity there is to cross-sell even your insurance products, wellness products, etc. And given that, you know, even in the mall itself, in the app itself, we'll be having those guidelines, those explanatory notices, and when they do hover and navigate the mall, they will then gain the necessary training in as far as the navigation of the app goes. Now, the next, with respect to the use, we've got our customer who's now at the gym. Remember, they've downloaded the app and they're excited to see these other products. Now, while at the gym, they realize that they don't have their wallet with them, and instantly remembers that, and that gym membership is due. They instantly remembers that there is a Letshego app that they have, which has you know, an instant loan on offer. And instantly, since they're carrying their cell phone, they go into their cell phone, accesses the mall, and instantly the KYC information that they had input in the module in the onboarding stage auto-populates, and they're thinking this is quite impressive. They're excited and grateful that, you know, they did avail of the mall from the Play Store in the first place. So from an opportunity perspective, given that now we have a customer that is now consuming our product, that speaks to the opportunity towards revenue generation. Now, with sustained use, they have now utilized the product once, and they, while at work, during their lunch break, they see a Letshego sticker on the food store, and instantly they remember that they now have a Letshego digital mall. They go into the mall again, and as they're in there, they now have credit sitting in with respect to the funds available, and instantly offer to pay for their meals using the available credit on their account. And when that gets accepted, they're thinking this is really convenient and safe, as there's no need to carry cash anymore. They're satisfied, and for us, it presents even more opportunities for more partnerships with other vendors, other service providers, other even fintechs. Now, from an advocacy perspective, now they're in office telling everybody, you know, colleagues about the Letshego product that has now changed their lives for the better. And, you know, that's where they're interacting with people from a touch point perspective. And when everybody's paying attention, they're really thinking, wow, people really do need, you know, convenience out there. And they're feeling satisfied, and they're feeling quite like the smartest person in the room, and excited that they are also not only having their lives changed, but also the lives of their colleagues. And for that, it presents an opportunity to us to attract even more customers through the customer's testimony.
Great, 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 great. Okay, excellent. So Ibuku, can we go to our slides because of time? Okay, so essentially we'll spend a couple of more minutes walking through gender barriers and understanding what these gender barriers actually mean for financial inclusion. Now, over the decade, the industry has attempted to recognize the value of female customers. Now, through things like gender-neutral banking policies that treat women and men equally, they've tried to remain neutral with respect to gender, and they've simply looked at human beings as being homogeneous, with the same needs, with the same products, with the same services. That's how financial service providers have traditionally looked at men and women. However, if banks actually continue to assume that these gender differences do not exist, or that they'll simply disappear when people walk into their institutions, they lose a significant opportunity to connect, unlock, and establish the world's most profound economic force, which is women. So it's very important that we as financial service providers understand women, understand the peculiarities women bring to the table, and understand how women have significantly different financial needs and financial circumstances from men. And then use this understanding and this knowledge to create products and services for these women. Next slide. Now, what's the difference between gender neutrality and gender intentionality? So it's very important to understand what these two terminologies actually mean, because they have significant implications for us as financial services providers, even as we go ahead to design and deploy products. Now, gender neutrality is a policy by an institution that seeks to avoid a gender bias when creating products. So when a product is gender neutral, the product does not speak to the needs of men or speak to the needs of women. And the product simply speaks to the need of the generic consumer. Now, when there is gender intentionality, what gender intentionality does is that when products are created with gender intentionality, there is a clear acknowledgement that gender differences exist, gender constraints exist, and that there are inequitable norms and dynamics as well as uses by the different genders that have significant implications for how the product will be priced, how the product will be positioned, how the product will be promoted, how the product will be perceived, how the product will be used, how the product's advocacy will follow. So FSPs who remain unintentional in their efforts to reach women without, first of all, identifying the gender differences that exist between men and women and the gender implications of these differences in how financial services are consumed and utilized, would usually have less effective results. Next slide. Now, what's an agency? An agency can be understood as that process through which women and men actually use their endowments to take advantage of economic opportunities to achieve the right types of outcomes. So agency is very important in understanding how gender outcomes emerge and why these gender outcomes are either equal or unequal. Next slide. Now, let's see how agency and empowerment actually interface. Now, when you look at markets, markets have men, women, have autonomous, have people who have statutory income, who earn income from their business, earn income from their investments, earn income from their profits. However, there are also formal institutions. So formal institutions have laws on ownership, marriage, enforcement, services, and information, while informal institutions have norms on roles, on power relations, on mobility, on masculinity, and also on networks. Households have the responsibility to allocate resources, allocate care, and then also allocate housework. Now, you have that circle where you have the merging of agency, endowments, as well as economic opportunities. Now, you would realize that agency now helps establish that control within the household. So how do you ensure that within the household, you are able to utilize economic opportunities, you're able to harness endowments, and these harnessed endowments as well as economic opportunities are utilized in solving the agency problems in the household. Next slide. Now, let's look at some gender barriers to financial inclusion. Now, firstly, let's look at demand side, supply side, as well as legal and regulatory barriers. When we talk about demand side, we're talking about barriers that exist at the level of the consumers who are actually consuming the product. And in this case, when we say gender barriers, we're actually referring to barriers that stop women from utilizing financial services. Okay, sorry, is someone making a comment? Okay, maybe that sound is just leaking into the class. Okay, I'll mute the person. Now, demand side barriers refer to those barriers that exist at the level of the female consumer. So now let's look at some of the demand side barriers. Lack of bargaining power within the household. So most times women are underrepresented. Women have to live under the oppression of men. Women have to take a back seat when significant decisions that have to do with money or other things in households are taken. Now, concentration in lower paying economic activities. So even though women are incredibly significant contributors to economic development, you tend to see them concentrate in lower paying economic activities, you know, petty trading, you know, other lower level economic activities that are essentially not considered to be high income generating. Now, there are also several competing demands on their time. So most times the woman has to look after the family, the woman has to look after the husband, the woman has to look after the extended family, the woman also has to look after her business. So you tend to see that there are so many things competing for her time simultaneously. You also have lack of assets for collateral. So because they are concentrated in lower paying economic activities, they do not have assets that they can actually pledge for as collaterals for loans. They also, in many contexts, lack formal identification documents. There's also reduced mobility due to time constraints or social norms. So they are not able to move significantly and carry out multiple economic activities. So lack of formal identification. They typically, in many markets, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, do not have IDs. So this lack of IDs make it difficult for financial service providers to deal with them or to extend credit or even savings to them. Now, they also have significantly lower rates of cell phone ownership. And hence, when you're actually pushing products through digital channels that are accessible through mobile phones, you need to rethink how these products are going to be received or utilized, considering the fact that several of these women do not have do not have cell phones that they can actually use to access these products. Now, let's look at some barriers that exist at the level of the financial service provider. So when we talk about supply side barriers, we're talking about barriers that exist at the level or on the side of financial service providers. Now, number one, inappropriate product offerings, absence of gender intentionality, and prevalence of gender neutrality or gender ignorance, if you permit me to use that language. Now, lots of financial service providers do not also have gender-specific policies and practices that influence product design and product marketing. Now, also another challenge is inappropriate distribution channels. So products are typically distributed through channels that women do not typically consume from. Now, what are some legal and regulatory barriers? So in so many markets, you have regulators stipulate account opening requirements that, for instance, require that the account holder or the potential account holder has some level of identification, which the financial service provider may not have, which the customer may not have. You know, you also have barriers to obtaining formal identification. You have legal barriers to owning and inheriting property and utilizing this property as collateral. You also have lack of gender inclusive credit reporting systems that actually highlight the gender gaps in access to credit in most of these markets. So these are some barriers that I think it's important we are aware of and are mindful of. Next slide. Now, women may actually disproportionately lack assets. So collateralizable assets like land, like shares, etc., that can be used as collateral for loans. Women also have lower levels of cell phone ownership, imbalanced relationship within the household, lack of bargaining power, as well as financial service products that do not specifically take gender-based barriers into account. Next slide. Okay, sometimes there are significant demands on the time of women's role in households. Next slide. Next slide. So for us as financial service providers, one way you can actually enhance your gender knowledge as well as your gender intentionality is to use HCD in understanding what these gender nuances are for women in utilizing financial products. This way, you can actually facilitate better access to economic resources and you can offer a lot more privacy and control. Next slide. Now, when we talk about better access to economic resources, we're talking about, for instance, increasing the effectiveness of cash transfer programs that target women. So for instance, in Niger, delivering cash transfers electronically has increased the likelihood that the recipient, who was a woman, was solely responsible for obtaining the transfer. So making these cash transfers electronic has increased the likelihood that a woman is actually going to be bypassed. And households in which women receive cash transfers electronically also had higher diet diversity and children consume more meals per day. Because when you essentially empower a woman, the woman takes care of the children. She takes care of the home. And you see, these are some of the insights that have been taken from prior studies that help in highlighting the significance of gender intentionality and the importance of gender intentionality in the design of financial service products. Next slide. In India, private accounts for women may impact the decision to work. So in India, depositing work payments into female-owned bank accounts led to significant increases in both work and economic engagement, especially among women, particularly limited to prevailing gender norms. So women who received the treatment were 7 percentage points more likely to have worked for pay in the past year and had 30% higher earnings. Next slide. Now, there are other features that can actually be offered to women. So for instance, in India, women who receive pay for work directly into private bank accounts were more likely to make purchases with their own money. Liquidity preferences in Kenya, when you provide free ATM cards, this has caused individuals with a stronger position in the household to significantly increase the usage of their accounts, while individuals with lower bargaining power, majority female, have reduced account usage. In Philippines, offering an illiquid savings account led to increased expenditures on female-oriented durable goods, such as sewing machines and kitchen appliances for women with low bargaining power. So all of these studies are further showing the significance of gender intentionality in product design and in product delivery. Next slide. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of day 2. It's what it is. We've significantly spilled over. But day 3, what are you going to be doing in day 3? In day 3, you would be working with Professor Lanka David West in learning how to actually use behavioral economics in financial product design. You're also going to learn how to identify and address pain points. And you'll go through an exercise in prototyping. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's been a profound honor and privilege. I'll pause now to see if there are any quick questions you have before I hand back to my colleagues to close the session. So any questions, any comments? I know today has been
wow, this is very nice. It was lovely, Daddy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Any questions, comments? Okay. So I'll hand over to Timothy and Ibuku now and Emmanuel to wrap up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nkem, for the very insightful session. I mean, I've attended HCD sessions several times, and I was able to get a lot of new insights from your session today. So thank you very much. And thank you to all those who joined us from all the FSPs and to our colleagues from IPA as well. So the next session will be on Tuesday the 24th, same time. I think that will be 10 a.m. Letshego time. So look forward to meeting you again next week. If you have any questions or concerns with the e-learn platform, please feel free to send us emails. We'll be happy to respond and sort out your problems as you engage with the platform. At this point, I would just like to thank you once again, and goodbye to everyone. See you next week.
I have a quick question, Dada Timothy.
Okay, go ahead, Selene.
Yes, I just want to ask, so when we get back to work after the whole session, would we be able to still have access to you to help us with just, anything that we may be stuck with and just making this a reality from a work perspective to deliver one of the products using this?
Okay, yeah, so I think you have access to.
So Timothy, maybe you'll take that up with IPA and then get back to
yes, exactly. So it's something we'll discuss with IPA.
Information. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Exactly.
But we are certainly not looking to leave you or abandon you.
No, not at all.
Thank you very much.
So Timothy, there's another comment saying the videos on the platform buffer.
So I think that will be a connectivity issue because I think with us here, we've not had similar complaints, but again, we'll check and see. I think you will need very good connectivity to be able to view the videos. I'm not sure you can download them. But let us know the problem.
So it's a bandwidth problem, right?
Yes, exactly.
Fair.
Okay. So I guess there are no more questions. So thank you very much once again, and bye. But again, if you have questions, you can send us emails.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.